All right, let's dive into something kind of cool today. Um, Motor City Paddle Club Kayak Rentals. We're going to be looking at what they offer, where they are, Weber Paddle Park, and a bit about the Salt River. We've got their website, plus some extra info on the park and river itself to get a good feel for the whole experience.
So it sounds like they're opening up a whole new way to see a really unique ecosystem right here in Michigan.
Exactly. They're opening mid to late April 2025 at Weber Paddle Park. That's in Chesterfield Township. You can find them right there on Jefferson Avenue. And hey, speaking of getting right to it, you can book your rentals online or call 313-765-2925. But before you grab your phone, maybe we should talk about what you can actually rent.
Yeah, because it's not just kayaks, though they do have quite a selection, it seems. You've got your single kayaks for, going solo, tandem kayaks for paddling with a friend, and then they even have premium kayaks, I guess if you want to cruise in a little more style.
I love that they have so many options. Because what if kayaking isn't your thing, but you still want to get out on the water? Well, they've got stand-up paddleboards, canoes, and even go boats. Have you ever been on one of those?
I haven't, no, but from what I've seen, they seem like a really fun way to enjoy the river, especially with a small group. It's like a little electric picnic boat. You can captain it yourself. No boating license needed.
Oh, I can picture it now. Like a group of friends out on a go boat with, some snacks, some drinks, just soaking up the sun and scenery.
Yeah.
And speaking of enjoying things, let's talk pricing. Motor City Paddle Club seems pretty focused on making this affordable for everyone.
For sure, and you can tell that from their prices. Singles are just $20 an hour, tandems are 30, and the premium kayaks are 50.
Stand-up paddleboards are also 30 an hour, canoes are 35, and the go boats, get this, they're $55 an hour for the whole boat. That's a pretty sweet deal considering you can fit like 8 people on those.
A lot of places, for that price, you'd get the bare minimum. But Motor City Paddle Club includes everything. The boat, the paddle, life jacket, even a quick safety briefing before you head out.
Nice. Okay, so we've got the rentals down, but let's switch gears for a sec. Talk about Weber Paddle Park itself. It's seasonal, open Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day weekend, which, makes sense, right? Michigan winters.
Yeah, and it's clearly a park designed with a lot of different things in mind, not just a boat launch. You've got docks, picnic areas, trails to explore, even some scenic overlooks. Sounds like a good place to spend the day, even if you're not, paddling.
I was just thinking that. It'd be so easy to make a whole day trip out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Picnic, walk around, then head out on the water. Plus, they have community events and educational programs too, which I think adds a whole other dimension to the experience.
Yeah, I saw that on their website. It definitely caught my eye. They offer guided paddles, kayak fishing lessons, even some conservation workshops. Seems like they're really invested in building a community around paddling and connecting people to the environment.
Man, all this talk about paddling is making me want to, jump in a kayak right now.
Oh.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's take a look at the star of the show, the Salt River. This beautiful waterway flows right into Anchor Bay, part of Lake St. Clair.
And what's interesting about the Salt River is it's surprisingly shallow and slow-moving, perfect for a relaxed paddle. Only has a max depth of 6 feet, but it's generally even shallower than that.
From what we've read, it's been described as swampy and serene, which honestly sounds pretty amazing to me. I like the idea of just paddling through nature, tranquil, disconnected from everything.
Me too, yeah. And that swampy description really got me thinking, about the ecosystem, the plants, the wildlife, all thriving in that environment. Maybe we can dive into that a little later.
Absolutely. We've got so much more to uncover about the Salt River. But before we get lost in the weeds, let's break down the rental process at Motor City Paddle Club. It seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it does. First, you got to make a reservation, online or by phone. Then you arrive at Weber Paddle Park, check in at the rental booth. And you'll need a valid ID to rent, along with signing a waiver.
Then the folks at Motor City Paddle Club get you all set up. Kayak or canoe, paddle, life jacket. And before you head out, they give you a quick safety briefing, just to make sure you're comfortable and confident on the water.
That safety briefing is a nice touch, especially for anyone who's, new to paddling. It's a good chance to get familiar with the equipment, learn some basics, and understand the rules of the waterway.
And then, when you're all done with your awesome paddling adventure, you just bring the stuff back and you're good to go.
It's as easy as that. Just remember, the last rental goes out at 7 p.m., so plan your time accordingly. Make the most of that Salt River experience.
So there you have it, the rundown on Motor City Paddle Club. But we've only just scratched the surface, really. There's more to explore, especially with the natural environment of the Salt River. Ready to dive a little deeper?
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely eager to learn more about the history, the ecology, and what kind of wildlife we might see along the way. We've been talking about Motor City Paddle Club, all the the practical stuff, but I keep wondering what really drew you to this deep dive in the first place. What sparked your interest?
Oh, that's a good question. I think for me, it's the combo of like how accessible it is in that unique environment. It's not every day you find a place where you can just rent a kayak or canoe and explore a river like the Salt River. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you. We talked about how affordable the rentals are, and the park itself seems really well set up for families or a day with friends. But then you add in that whole swampy and serene thing, and it becomes something else, you know?
Right. It's like this little hidden gem tucked away in like the Detroit suburbs. You could almost picture yourself paddling through, I don't know, like a secluded wilderness surrounded by nature, even though you're just a short drive from the city.
It's that feeling of discovery, that escape into a different world. I think that appeals to a lot of people, me included. And, it's not even just about like the visual beauty, it's the sounds, the smells, the whole sensory experience of being immersed in nature.
I was just thinking about that. The
Yeah.
sounds, the smells. I'm imagining the quiet splash of the paddle, the rustling leaves, maybe even some frogs croaking or birds chirping. It's such a contrast to the noise and, all the craziness of everyday life.
Exactly. And that's what makes this such a cool deep dive, right? We're not just looking at a fun activity or a pretty place. We're talking about a way to reconnect with ourselves, with the natural world. It's a chance to slow down, breathe, appreciate the simple beauty of our surroundings.
And it's not even just about, the individual experience. Motor City Cattle Club seems to be building this like real sense of community around paddling. It's not
Yeah.
just here's a boat, go have fun. They're creating these opportunities for people to learn, connect, and share their love for the outdoors.
Totally. You see it on their website too. Guided paddles, those
Hmm.
fishing lessons, even conservation workshops. It's like they're saying, hey, come for the paddling, but save for the community.
Which brings up another thing that I noticed, their attention to detail. Those little things they do to make the whole experience better.
Oh, for sure. Like what?
Well, they mentioned on the site that they have snacks and drinks for sale. It's like they anticipated that after a couple hours on the water, you might be thirsty. You need a little pick-me-up.
That's smart. And they have essentials like sunscreen and waterproof bags too. It's those little touches that like make you feel like they've really thought of everything. So you can just relax and enjoy yourself.
And speaking of hassle-free, I love how simple the rental process seems.
Yeah.
You make a reservation, you show up, grab your gear, and you're off. No, like, complicated procedures or long lines.
Just get you out on the water, enjoying the experience. And that's what I like about Motor City Paddle Club. They seem to get it. Paddling is about more than just the physical part. It's about that connection with nature, escaping the everyday and making memories.
You've nailed it. They're providing a service, yeah, but they're also, like, facilitating an experience, a way for people to really engage with nature
Mm.
in a meaningful way.
And we've been talking about this as people who are already kind of into paddling. But I think there's something here for people who might be like hesitant
Mhm.
or unsure if it's for them.
Oh, totally. I can see how the calm waters of the Salt River, the affordable rentals, and that supportive environment at Motor City Paddle Club would make it perfect for, beginners or anyone who might be a little intimidated by kayaking or canoeing.
Almost like a gateway to the world of paddling, a gentle introduction to the joys of being on the water, surrounded by nature.
Okay, so we've talked about the affordability, the accessibility, that sense of community, and the unique environment. But we haven't really dug into the Salt River itself. You ready to explore a bit more about this swampy and serene waterway?
Absolutely. I'm especially curious about that swampy description. It hints at this whole ecosystem that we haven't even touched on yet. What kind of plants and animals are we going to find along the Salt River? What makes this place so unique?
That's what I'm wondering too. Let's put on our explorer hats and delve into the natural world of the Salt River. Okay, so we've covered all the cool stuff at Motor City Paddle Club, the vibe at Weber Paddle Park, but now I'm really curious about the Salt River itself. It's described as swampy and serene, which, I mean, sounds pretty cool, but what's the story there? Like, what's the history of this river? What kind of ecosystem are we talking about?
Well, let's start with that swampy part. It's funny because when we think of a swamp, right, we might picture something dark, dense, kind of, forbidding even. But the thing is that swampiness, that's actually part of what makes the Salt River so unique, ecologically valuable even.
Yeah, I see that. It makes me think of all the life that must be in those marshy areas along the banks. You know,
Hmm.
like what kind of plants grow in those conditions? Cattails, reeds, maybe even some wild irises, and then all the animals that depend on those plants for food, for shelter, for everything.
Exactly. You're starting to paint a picture of a really thriving ecosystem. And remember, the Salt River flows into Anchor Bay, which is part of Lake St. Clair, and ultimately connected to the whole Great Lakes system. So this seemingly small and quiet river, it's actually a piece of much bigger, much more important network.
Wow, I haven't thought of it like that. Like this little river is a tiny version of the whole Great Lakes region. And the Great Lakes, they've got such a rich history, right? Shaped by geology, indigenous cultures, and, of course, us humans.
Absolutely. So when you're paddling down the Salt River, you're not just, experiencing a pretty natural setting, you're connecting with a place that has a deep history, layers and layers of it. And that history, it's all intertwined with the ecology, the plants and animals that have made their home there, adapted to this very specific environment over time.
We were talking earlier about how Motor City Paddle Club has those guided paddles and educational programs. I wonder if they, like, dive into the history and the ecology of the Salt River. It'd be awesome to have someone point out the different plants and animals, explain the history, bring that whole ecosystem to life.
Oh, I bet they do. It'd be a missed opportunity if they didn't, really. I mean, it's one thing to just to paddle down the river, enjoy the scenery, but it's a whole other thing to understand the web of life that's there, see the connections between the plants, the animals, the water, and even the human history of it all.
It's like adding this whole other level of appreciation. And that makes me think about what you mentioned before about the sensory experience of being in nature. It's not just what you see, but what you hear, smell, even feel.
Exactly. Imagine paddling quietly through the marshes. You hear the reeds rustling in the breeze, maybe catch a glimpse of a turtle on a log sunning itself, or the scent of wildflowers along the banks. These are things you might miss if you're not, if you're not really paying attention, not fully present in the moment.
And that's what I love about paddling. It forces you to slow down, be present,
Mm.
to really observe and appreciate what's around you.
You've hit on something important there. In a world that's constantly, demanding our attention, rushing us from one thing to the next, paddling offers that chance to disconnect, to reconnect with ourselves, with the natural world.
It's almost like a moving meditation in a way.
Mm,
Physically active, but your mind can wander, observe, just be.
exactly. And that's what makes the Salt River and places like Motor City Paddle Club so valuable. They give us that space to escape, to recharge, to find some peace and quiet.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Motor City Paddle Club and the Salt River, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from all this?
I think it's this. Don't just see this as another place to rent a kayak. See it as a chance to experience something truly special. Connect with nature, learn something new, and create a memory that'll stick with you long after you've left the river.
And who knows? Maybe this deep dive will inspire someone to not only visit Motor City Paddle Club, but to find other ways to connect with nature, whether it's exploring a local park, hiking a trail, or even just watching the birds in their backyard.
Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? Rediscovering that connection to the natural world and seeing how important it is to protect these places for everyone, for generations to come.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you with this. The next time you need to escape, to find a little peace and quiet, remember the Salt River and the opportunity that's waiting there. Happy paddling.